Okay, guys, this is 2.1 multiplying of integers. Remember, integers are whole numbers and their opposites, okay? So we'll do this part at the end after we find some patterns. So let me model for you how to multiply some of these factors and get the product, and also we'll do counters if that helps you visualize it. So for instance, if I have 3 times 3, right? That means I have 3 groups of 3. So I'm going to start at 0 and I'm going to say, okay, this is 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. So the answer for that one will be 9, okay? Now, if I have 3 groups of -3, okay? Well, I'm going to start 0, but because they're negatives, I'm going to go, there's 1 group, 2 groups of 3, a -3, and 3 groups. So in this case, that will be a -9. That's where I end up, okay? So that is for the graphing, okay? Now, let me show you with counters to show you this one right here. So again, I basically show you this one right here, and then this one is this one. I remember it's okay to interchange the locations, the order of the factors to get the same product, okay? But let me model that for you with counters. So if I have, I'm going to do the positive one first. So if I do 3 times 3, that means that I have 3 groups of 3, right? So 1, 2, 3, and they're positives, right? So I'm going to end up with positive 9 in this case. I have 9 positive counters, right? Now, if I have 3 groups of -3s, then I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 negative counters, 1, 2, 3 negative counters, and 1, 2, 3 negative counters. So I have 3 groups of -3s, okay? So that answer will be -9, okay? Now, when they ask me to do, so when I have, for instance, -3 times -3. So in this case, I'm going to take this one right here. So in this case, I have 3 times -3, right? That means I have 3 groups of -3 counters. So I have 1, 2, 3 groups. Now, if I take that to be a -3 times -3, I still have the -3 counters in each of those groups, but I want the opposite. So what is the opposite of a -9? That will be a +9. Okay, that's how we use the counters. So let's go and see the patterns. Okay, I'm gonna write this 2 right here, so we can see the patterns that we find. Okay, so in this case we had -3 times -3, and that gave me a +9. Okay. So here we go. Let's look at these 3 numbers. What do we notice about the integers? Well, in this case, I know that these 2 integers, this one is positive, right? And this is positive. And the answer was also positive. So I'm going to write it right here. That gave me a positive answer, right? This one was a positive times a negative. And that gave me a negative answer. And then this one right here was a negative times a negative. And that gave me a positive answer. So what do I notice? I notice that when they have the same sign, the factors have the same sign, I end up with a positive product, okay, positive answer, right? I had a positive times a positive that gave me a positive, and then I have a negative times a negative, and that gave me a positive as well. So when they have the same sign, they're going to have the same, they're going to have a positive product, okay? So in this case, both of those cases are +9s, okay? Something that can help you remember that is if you have a positive times a positive, you're going to get a happy face, so that's a positive, right? And if you have a negative times a negative, you also get a happy face, okay? Now, what do we notice about having different signs for the factors, right? We notice that when they have different signs for the factors, that is a negative, okay? So when they have different signs, their answer is negative, so that will be a -9. That's also -9. So a little thing that can help you is like this. If you have a positive times a negative, you basically have a black eye. They punch you. That's a sad face. Okay. And then right here you have a punching, punch eye, a black eye, and then a positive eye. You end up with a negative face. Okay. So the pattern that we see, you guys, is that when they have the same sign, the product is positive. When factors have different signs, the product is negative. Another thing that you can remember is in relationships. We have things in common. You usually have a positive relationship. When you're like totally different, right, and opposite, you have not a very good relationship. You have a negative relationship most of the time, okay? Another thing that can help you with your multiplication and division of integers with positive and negative signs is this little triangle. So in this little triangle, what I'm going to say is, okay, I have a negative times a negative. So I'm going to say I have a negative times a negative. I'm going to cover that, and that gives me the answer for the product, which is a positive, okay? In this case, I'm going to say, well, I have a positive and a negative. Cover those two. What will my answer be? A negative, right? I have a negative times a positive again. The answer should be a negative. So whatever works for you that helps you remember that, make sure that you use that, okay? For me, it's just remembering the same sign, positive answer, different signs, negative answer. Okay, so here you go. Let me give you your homework. So let me just review quickly, and then I'll give you homework to show me at the beginning of class on your whiteboard. So again, if I have 3, times negative 6, because they have different signs, I'm going to get a negative number, and that's just 18. If I have 3 times 6, that's just positive 18. If I have negative 3 times negative 6, because they have the same sign again, I'm going to end up with a positive number, which is 18. Okay, if I have negative 3 times positive 6, again, different signs, negative relationship, that's going to be a negative 18. So here we go. You get 3 problems for your homework. So that's negative 5 times 4, and then we'll get 3 times negative 7, and then we'll do a negative 18 times negative 2. So make sure you box those 3 answers on your whiteboard and you show that to me. Remember, math is magical and you are awesome. Blessings.